Welcome to our community Church Unitarian Universalist. I am your minister, Reverend Darcy Roque, and it is a joy to be with you virtually today. So who are we as community church? We are a progressive, open-minded, and inclusive religious community. We welcome all who are on a spiritual search for truth and meaning. Ours is a faith in action as we do the work of social justice and elevate compassion in our quest to live ethically, recognizing the inherent worth and dignity of every being. Now, please look to your weekly emails for announcements. Hopefully you're receiving them on Thursdays. If not, please write admin@ccuunola.org and you should be receiving them. But I want to highlight a few things today that are so new and exciting that we didn't even have the chance to add them this week. Starting this Thursday, October 8th, CCUU member Alan Malone will be hosting a weekly virtual CCUU social hour, or I'm going to say social hours, from 7 to 9 p.m. This will be an informal time for us to connect in commiseration and in joy. Login info is in your chat box. It will also be coming out with announcements this week. As many of you know, Evensong, Reverend Jacqueline, CCU member Reverend Jacqueline Sharing, Worship, and Learning Circle will begin this afternoon at 4 p.m. Please check the chat box as well to register to join her. So I've had so many great conversations with CCU folks in the last week who have signed up to become block captains, letter writers, poll workers, issue advocates, and more in this very important month running up to the November 3rd election. Thank you. And you can still get involved in a myriad of ways. And speaking of our advocates, Minister Emeritus Reverend Jim Vanderweel would like folks to join Together Louisiana to learn more about an Amendment 5 proposal that will be on our ballot in November. General Russell Honore will lead this opportunity this Monday, October 5th at 6:30 p.m. The link is in your text box to register. And here are General Honore's words of introduction to the Amendment 5. Amendment 5 would allow industrial corporations to negotiate what they pay in property taxes, while the rest of us pay what the law requires. It would defund public education, pull money away from roads, bridges, healthcare, and hurricane recovery, and shift the tax burden to working families and small businesses. The ballot language was engineered to intentionally confuse the average voter, says one reporter. And so this is General Honore's words. That's why the community education campaign we're starting is so important. So if you'd like to join Reverend Jim and learn more about Amendment 5 and what you can do to spread the word and make your own decision on that, please join the 6:30 p.m. webinar on Monday, October 5th. Now, last but not least, the Endowment Committee is now accepting proposals for 2021 grants. If your ministry has a project that will benefit CCUU or our greater community, please contact Jolie Bonk. Her email is in the text box for an application. Deadline for an application is December 1st, 2020. And I have to say personally, as an individual who has been leading virtual worship with many others, the endowment grant that we received has helped us continue our work. And so these grants are so important as we think about what and who we're going to be into the coming year. So I would urge anyone who has an idea that they're excited about to consider applying. Finally, of course, we have our wonderful CCUU member, Dion DeVille, who leads our coffee hour. Thank you so much. So please stay after the service if you would like to join us for coffee hour. And today, we are delighted to introduce our guest speaker virtually. We can do that these days, Cathryn McGill. Cathryn is a 2020 YWCA Women on the Move Award winner, 2013 University of New Mexico Africana Studies Person of the Year, and 2014 New Mexico Business First Woman of Influence and Creative Albuquerque Brazos Award recipient. Kathy is a seasoned public administrator, an accomplished producer, and a favorite featured singer, songwriter, actress in the Southwest. McGill is founder, director of the New Mexico Black History Organizing Committee, Rainbow Studio Theater, the state's only professional African-American theater troupe, and currently the New Mexico Black Leadership Council. McGill has held senior management positions at the City of Albuquerque, the Albuquerque Rape Crisis Center, and the New Mexico Jazz Workshop. She describes herself as a cultural griot, a musician, a storyteller, and a unifier. Cathryn's life and passion and vocation is art-based community development. The New Mexico Black History Organizing Committee, now in its 9th year, founded by McGill, is working this year-round to strengthen the African-American community from the inside out. Since 2013, the organization has inaugurated a culturally relevant summer arts leadership academy for youth aged 8 to 16, with apprenticeship opportunities for older youth. The camp is designed to teach leadership and self-esteem, utilizing the arts as a tool. So the ultimate goal for all this programming, and there is more, is to create true multiculturalism in New Mexico. And Cathryn has been at our pulpit once before. It was a beautiful service, and is a member of the First Unitarian Church of Albuquerque, New Mexico. It is such a delight to have her here with us today. And so, let us begin our worship in earnest with our chalice lighting.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to do the chalice lighting reading. It is by Laura Thompson. Across the distance, the light from within me shines, sending love to all. Across the distance, your light is fuel that warms me and helps to keep my own lighting burning. Together, we keep the flame of community burning bright. When I was little, my mother would take us all about. So there were 3 girls, and we would sit in a line in the bathtub. And I always remember this, to who was going to get washed first. She would say this little, it's kind of like eeny, meeny, miny, mo, but in the Spanish version. So I always remember, to this day, I pronounce it incorrectly, so I had to look up the Spanish words for it. But it goes, Tin marin me don pingüe, cucara macara títere fue. Yo no fui, you te ti. Que ese momento fui. It's kind of just gibberish. But we would sit there and she would go, Tin marin me don pingüe, cucara macara títere fue. And you're with the person who was oh yes. And she would do it again. Tin marin me don pingüe, cucara macara piquete fue. And then, so we would always get that fue. So it was just a kind of a nice reminder, because it took me a while to figure out what games did I play that really, but then it just popped into my head. And even as adults, we always would say that all the time. And it was an endearing thing for my mom, like, oh, we would squeal with delight when she would say, whee. And so, but I found out, just looking at, when I was older, I was listening to Spanish language radio, and this song came out. Tin marin me don pingüe, cucara macara títere fue. Tin marin me don pingüe, cucara macara títere fue. So I was like, I called my sister, oh my God, there's a song about it. But it's just the teeny, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, catch a piggy by his toe, if you always let him go, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. It's kind of like that. So it's nonsensical, but it was just a memory, and all Latino children will have this as their memory. But for me, it's that sitting in the bathtub with my sisters and my mother saying this and repeating, and we would get so excited. And I remember we would get so squeal when we were the whee. So anyways, I wanted to share that with you. So now you got that, it was an earworm in your head. So I will, that's it. And I will see you later.
Thank you, Cynthia. So this was a little bit of thinking about Haha Made You Look. Cathryn McGill is going to be doing that service, our service today. And part of that is thinking about the games that we played as children. And Cathryn wanted to make sure that we had a fun game that we talked about, as well as she's talking about sometimes the not so nice games that we play as children. So thank you so much. That is definitely going to be in my head. Speaking of that, I am delighted to introduce our first video of Cathryn McGill's reading from Howard Thurman.
This is a reading from Reverend Howard Thurman from a 1980 commencement address that he gave at Spelman College called The Sound of the Genuine. There's something in every one of you that waits, listens for the sound of the genuine in yourself, and if you cannot hear it, you will never find whatever it is for which you are searching. And if you hear it and then do not follow it, it was better that you had never been born. You are the only one and the only you that has ever lived. Your idiom is the only idiom of its kind in all of existence. And if you cannot hear the sound of the genuine in you, you will all of your life spend your days on the ends of strings that somebody else pulls. There is in you something that waits and listens for the sound of the genuine in yourself. And sometimes there is so much traffic going on in your minds, so many different kinds of signals, so many vast impulses floating through your organism that go back thousands of generations, long before you were even a thought in the mind of creation, and you were buffered by these. And in the midst of all of this, you have got to find out what your name is. Who are you? How does the sound of the genuine come through to you? There's something that waits and listens for the sound of the genuine in your mother, in your father, in the people you can't stand. And if you had the power, you would wipe them out.
Right there.
But instinctively you know that if you wipe them out, you go with them. So you fight for your own life by finding some way to get
I'll ask
along
Charlotte
without them
to just not touch it.
and
In fact,
without
we can
killing
put a sign
them.
up that just says, please don't touch.
So as I live my life then, this is what I am trying to fulfill. It doesn't matter whether I become a doctor, lawyer, housewife. I'm secure because I hear the sound of the genuine in myself, and having learned to listen to that, I can become quiet enough, still enough, to hear the sound of the genuine in you. Now, if I hear the sound of the genuine in me, and if you hear the sound of the genuine in you, it is possible for me to go down in me and come up in you. So that when I look at myself through your eyes, having made that pilgrimage, I see in me what you see in me, and the wall that separates and divides will disappear, and we will become one, because the sound of the genuine makes the same music.
Thank you, Cathryn. And apologies if there was any interruptions. It's a bit like Oz behind the curtain. Hopefully we're more more lovely than Oz, but we are continuing to grow and learn how to do our work. So thank you so much. And thank you, Cathryn. And so this is one of the most important times of our service in these days, which is our times for joys and for sorrows. And so for this week, which feels like a month, this month, which feels like a year, this year, which feels like a decade, let us make sure that we continue to name and hold each other and the larger world in community. And so this is the time when we lift up those joys that are so exciting, that bring us light and love and goodness and grounding in this time. Let us share these joys and let these joys be shared. And let us also remember that each of us is walking with sorrow in one way or the other. Some people's burden is much heavier. Please know that in lifting up your sorrows as well, we hope as a community that we can help support and love and care for you. So as our music plays Circle Round from Freedom by Dr. Glenn Thomas Rideout, I ask that you add your joys and sorrows in our Zoom chat box, and we will light a candle.
For freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for its soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom. Circle round for peace. For all of us imprisoned, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for its soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom. Circle round for peace. For all of us imprisoned, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for its soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole.
So our first candle lighting today is from Jim O'Neill. It is sad to see the consequences for so many of ignorance and arrogance. Lauren Johnson mentions, what a pretty song. Music in this time can be such a balm. Cindy from Minneapolis, hello Cindy, is happy to see everyone virtually and to be joining from Minneapolis. Anik O writes, it feels like a crazy, unpredictable time. I personally am okay money-wise, but so many aren't. It is hard to see. Let's light a candle for that. And look, we have someone from Thibodaux, Louisiana. We are excited to try out this service for the first time in Thibodaux, Louisiana. Welcome. We are delighted to have you. Howard Milkey is joyful for the beautiful music about peace in the midst of all the violence and death that are a part of our current reality. More people are loving the beautiful song. Henry McCarthy would like to lift up the health of his brother John Gabriel and for wellness and peace in all communities. Will Hahn writes that I do not believe in karma, however, I do believe in consequences, and sometimes they can be unforgiving and severe. The music, again, a thanks. And there is, Anik is from Albuquerque, New Mexico. It is wonderful to have folks from across the country joining us today. And I would be remiss to not light a candle for the almost 210,000 individuals who have died from COVID-19 here in the United States. It has been some time actually since we have lit a candle for that, and I'm realizing in the news that is in there and that this is a daily reality. So I want to light a candle in sorrow and in hope that there will be continued healing for our country. And as always, there are joys that we have not yet spoken, joys that are there, joys that come from waking up in the morning and seeing the dawn, to being with family, to having some time not being with family, having some alone time, to having some time connecting with others. These are daily joys that we can find, and we find them in this community here too. I want to lift up that joy. I also want to lift up all the sorrows that are too heavy to share at the moment, all the anxieties, all the ways that all of us are holding on to see what is happening next. We don't know. What we do know is we are here now together, and we will be here together. We light a candle for that as well. So Community Church Unitarian Universalist, we're a self-sustaining congregation. Members and friends' generosity help us do the sacred work of bringing justice, spirituality, and compassion to our community and beyond. You can give online at www.ccunola.org/stewardship. It'll be in the text box. Or you can text us at 504-370-2659. Text GIVE to be prompted to make your donation. For virtual donations, please note that there's a 3% processing fee. So if you're able to add that into your calculation, great. Much appreciated. Also, you can send a check to CCU at 6690 Fleur-de-Lis Drive, New Orleans, Louisiana, 70124. That is where we are right at this very moment. It is good to see you. We're now going to have a few moments for music in our offertory so we can have just a little more space for reflection. It is an honor and a privilege all the way from Albuquerque, New Mexico, to introduce Cathryn McGill's sermon, Ha Ha Made You Look.
Good morning, Community Church UU. I'm glad to be here with you in this virtual environment, but I sure wish I could be there in person with you, basking in all the loveliness that is New Orleans. Last year when you invited me, I got a chance to stay with Reverend Darcy and her beautiful family, and I learned this week that her beautiful family has grown larger since I was there. So congratulations, Reverend Darcy, and hello, and I just want to thank you all for letting me be with you again, and I do want you to know that now I really do know what it means to miss New Orleans. I'm so grateful that I have what I feel like is a soft place to land when I make it back your way, and I intend to do that very soon. But the very first time I came and stood in the pulpit at your church, I talked about declarations of interdependence. And I read an excerpt from Richard Blanco's Declaration of Interdependence that bears repeating. We hold these truths to be self-evident. We're them, they're you, they're me. We're us, a handshake, a smile, a good morning on the bus, a door held open, a seat we give up on the subway. We tend restrooms or sell art, make huevos rancheros or herb salmon, run for mayor or restock shelves, work a backhoe or write poems. We are a poem in progress. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to fulfill the promise of being one people, necessary to abolish any government that becomes destructive of these ends, necessary to dissolve the political bands that keep us from even speaking to each other, necessary to avow our interdependence, to look straight into each other's eyes the way we behold the moon, and declare to one another, I see you, I see you, I see you. These appeals to avow our interdependence are as old as time. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. talked about how we go about achieving beloved community, and we keep repeating these flowery words over and over and over and over and over again, and yet, fast forward a couple of years, 40 years in the case of Howard Thurman's The Sound of the Genuine, and we're still talking about the same thing. I don't know about you, but I'm kind of tired of having these conversations over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. So I'd like to start by asking you to make an agreement with me that we're just going to get to the doing part of our existence. I just saw a meme on Facebook the other day that we could either say one day or day one. So here we go. Day one. A few months ago, a pandemic blindsided us and stopped all of us in our tracks and made most of us realize that life as we knew it was no more. Everything changed in an instant. This season in our lives is so incredibly challenging, and then right on top of it came a series of new blows that we had to pay attention to. We watched a modern-day lynching in real time. It was everywhere, and there were no other distractions to allow us to ignore the 401-year pandemic of racism that is and has been as devastating as COVID-19. Our emotions are running so high in this moment, and people are asking, what can we do? What do we do to end this crisis? How do we make Black Lives Matter for real? I suggest to you that we must do everything we can, as Reverend William Barber said, to make this a movement and not a moment. This, as my friend in New Mexico says, is a tipping point and not a flashpoint. And to further nuance that statement, I would add that our focus on the moment is essential. As I said, we can't ignore what is happening in this current moment, but it must be accompanied by an equivalent focus on the movement. What do we do when the hashtags stop trending? And when the news cycles end, and they will end? What will you do? What will I do? What will we do then? The system, and the container that created this moment requires the same intensity of focus. Most of us would agree that our system of governance is broken and requires change. And I said most of us because I regularly read about people who say on social media or on television or in print some other way that they just can't figure out what the problem is. Why do you all keep complaining? What's wrong with you? For the record, these people are not on my Christmas list. You know, because we may not all have the same understanding of what change looks like, but there is fairly common agreement that there are major defects in our system of government. Today, I'm asking you to join me in understanding that we are not separate from the system. Collectively, we comprise it. I'd ask you to explore with me a new way to discuss the system by agreeing with, or at least seriously considering, this premise. I am the system. Therefore, I am the solution. We are smart and committed people, and now is the time for us to acknowledge that the white supremacy and racism that is inherent within the structure of our systems will only change when we do, when you do, when I do. So my talk today is about our personal responsibility as relates to the situation we currently find ourselves in as a nation. I also want to make an important distinction here. I am Cathryn McGill, founder director of the New Mexico Black Leadership Council and the New Mexico Black History Organizing Committee. The purpose to which my life is committed, my assignment, if you will, is to use my voice and influence to create a society that is based on equality and justice. I am a Black woman, and I am very proud of my heritage and my ancestry, but I do not speak for every Black person. And it is a mistake to make one person your source of information about what is so. I encourage all of you to understand your personal brand, your own sound of your genuine, and your own pathway to being a leader and demonstrating leadership, because we are all leaders in our own unique way. In regards to contextualizing this moment, this is not the first time that America has experienced this kind of national unrest. On June 11th, 1963, America's 35th president, John F. Kennedy, went on television hours after Governor George Wallace tried to prevent two qualified African-American students from entering the University of Alabama. Kennedy himself had not previously been willing to use his office to mandate civil rights until he was forced to do so by protests and demands that he look at what was happening in the nation as a moral imperative to act. Until he relented and understood that if America was indeed the land of the free and the home of the brave, that it had to be true for everyone and not just for some. He went on national television that evening and he said, "Good evening, my fellow citizens. This afternoon, following a series of threats and defiant statements, the presence of the Alabama National Guardsmen was required on the University of Alabama campus to carry out the final and unequivocal order of the United States District Court of the Northern District of Alabama. That order called for the admission of two clearly qualified young Alabama residents who happened to have been born Negro. He went on to urge Americans to look within and to reflect individually about where we wanted to stand as a nation, when he said, this nation was founded on the principle that all men are created equal, and that the rights of every man are diminished when the rights of one man are threatened. We are confronted primarily with a moral issue. It is as old as the scriptures, and it is as clear as the American Constitution. The heart of the question is whether all Americans are to be afforded equal rights and equal opportunities, whether we are going to treat our fellow Americans as we want to be treated. 100 years of delay have passed since President Lincoln freed the slaves, yet their heirs, their grandsons, are not fully free. Neither will Americans be until all its citizens are free. After delivering this speech, Kennedy reportedly said to a few trusted colleagues, sometimes you look at what you've done, and the only thing you ask yourself is what took you so long to do it? The next week, President Kennedy sent his Civil Rights Bill to Congress, and with that impassioned plea and historic legislation that went to Congress and was eventually passed, shouldn't that have been the end of it? Why are we in this place again? I believe that it is our focus has been primarily on handling the crisis of the moment. Certainly the moment is important, as I said, it must be addressed, but this focus distracts us, perhaps by design, from focusing on real change and long-term solutions. The system that we operate in is designed to be self-perpetuating, and while we focus on easing the pain of this moment, and there's been so much pain and so much tragedy, so much crisis, the system, while we have that focus, continues unabated. And many of the solutions that we employ are only temporary. We must ask ourselves why this is true. If we are who we say we are, if we believe what we say we believe, if we hear the sound of our genuine. The Committee on Public Information, or the Creel Commission, headed up by George Creel and created by the Wilson administration, was an independent agency of the United States government designed to influence public opinion to support our country's participation in World War I. The leading figure in the Creel Commission was a man by the name of Edward Bernays, the nephew of Sigmund Freud. Armed with his uncle's theories of the subconscious, Edward Bernays is considered to be the father of public relations. Bernays wrote a book called Propaganda that chronicled his successful campaign in World War I to rally patriotism and to equate patriotism with our participation in war efforts. And it should be noticed that the term propaganda did not have any bad juju back at that time, and it only became bad when it was associated with the antics of Nazi Germany in World War II. But Bernays theorized and popularized the notion that it is possible and necessary to regiment the public mind every bit as much as an army regiments bodies. The techniques used to regiment minds, he said, had to be used by the intelligent minorities in order to make sure that the government remained in power and control of the ignorant majority. And ladies, if you're ever wondering who helped make pantyhose, that evil, hot, restricting invention popular, you can look to Freud's nephew, Mr. Bernays, who helped to shape the campaign that told us as women that if we wanted to be beautiful, that if we wanted empowerment, that we had to wear silk hosiery and subsequently pantyhose to be considered so. You know, I don't know about you, but I agree that I do want to be acknowledged as beautiful and empowered, but I think most of us has come to learn that wearing pantyhose is not, in fact, what makes us beautiful and empowered. Unbeknownst to me at the time, I played a game as a child that perfectly illustrates what Bernays was trying to do, because wearing pantyhose, like so many other things, was a well-orchestrated and brilliant distraction. And this game that I played as a child usually began with some other kid on the playground or in the classroom who would sneak up behind you and say, look over there. And when you looked, the kid would start chanting, ha ha, made you look, stole your mama's pocketbook. This is a child's game that we're still playing. This moment is important, and perhaps the most important moment of my life. But if we focus only on the vagaries and the injustice of this particular crisis and not the system that created it, it will be another ha-ha, made you look moment, and nothing, and I do mean nothing, will ever change. I find that unacceptable, and I hope you will too. And the way we dismantle the system is by taking individual ownership of this current moment. I am the system. Therefore, I am the solution. I ran across an article in the Harvard Business Review a few years ago that focused on how we change systems and organizations. And the author said that change occurs when leaders, and we are all leaders, take personal responsibility and start each day by saying, what leadership is required of me in this situation? And how can I be of service? I am asking you to begin dismantling systems that don't support equality and that don't support justice by doing your own research on how we can authentically live out the principles upon which this country was founded. And the next time you walk into a room where you have the power and you have the privilege to use your voice to make a difference, if you are who you say you belong, who you are, and you believe what you say you believe, and you hear the sound of your own genuine, you must use your voice to make that difference. Let us go beyond tokenism and surface level diversity, equity, and inclusion to humanism so that my interests are represented whether I am in the room or not. Take me and the common need for equality and justice with you to those spaces, and I promise to do the same for you. I am the system, therefore I am the solution. When you go into those rooms with an equality and a justice lens, ask yourself in the moment, what leadership is required of me in this situation, and how can I be of service in support of our common mission? And as Maya Angelou reminded us, it will take courage. She said, I am convinced that courage is the most important of all virtues, because without courage, you cannot practice any other virtue consistently. Oh, you can be kind for a while. You can be generous for a while. You can be just for a while, or merciful for a while, even loving for a while. But it is only with courage that you can be persistently and insistently kind and generous and fair. It will take courage to change the system and make a commitment to shared power. But I know we can do it. This is an anthem that I wrote recently that I hope will help to reframe and define our efforts. Wake up, stand up, speak out, break through, rise up, step back, step up, undo, start fresh, do right, listen, learn more. This is all we're asking for. This is a movement. It is not a moment. And in the spirit of my ancestors, without whom I would have no voice, I implore all of us to work together to make it so. Don't get distracted by the games we played as children. When presented with another ha-ha made you look distraction, call it like it is and say, I'm not falling for it this time. And let folks know that this is a movement and not a moment. Stand a bit taller and tell them, as Richard Blanco did in Declarations of Interdependence, I see you. Or as Howard Thurman declared, I hear the sound of the genuine in you, and I need you to hear it in me. No more conversations about justice in the future one day. No, no. This is day one.
I don't think I could say it any better than Cathryn McGill said it. So our benediction today will be the words of the great Cathryn McGill. Thank you again. Wake up, stand up, speak out, break through. Rise up, step back, step up, undo. Start fresh, do right, listen, learn more. This is all we're asking for. This is a movement. It is not a moment. So let us move into our weeks with these words to sustain us until we come together again. Amen.